Hong Kong Wetland Park started as an ecological mitigation area for land reclamation as part of Tin Shui Wai's development in the northwestern New Territories. Today, it is a signature ecological project for the city, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors and hosting many educational activities each year. How was it built? How did ecologists, landscape architects, engineers, and other professional consultants collaborate to achieve the project outcomes, especially in a time when the Environmental Impact Assessment Ordinance did not exist?
I initially trained as an ecologist and studied ecological science at Edinburgh. But when I qualified, it was the end of the 70s and I couldn't get any work, so I retrained as a landscape architect. So I very much enjoy working on the interface between ecology and landscape architecture.
What was your role in this project?
Okay, well, I was working for Territory Development Department, as it was in those days, and I was basically coordinating everything from the government side and also managing the consultant and helping the consultant to do the research and do the design work, then subsequently on the management of the contractor when the contractor was in place. Obviously required quite a lot of hands-on from our side because it was a unique project. It was the first time we'd done anything like this. So it was much more complicated than your normal engineering contract.
From the point of view of a landscape architect, what makes this project really unique?
Well, it was basically the first major habitat creation in Hong Kong. There had been small-scale stuff done before this, but this is the first time that a very large area, 50-odd hectares, had been devoted to wetland habitats. So, but that obviously produced its own challenges because it was a bit of a learning process as we went along. It is unique also in the sense that it's a tropical wetland. Most of the literature, most of the work that's been done has been on Northern Hemisphere, Europe and the North America. There wasn't much we could learn from the literature. We had to teach ourselves a lot. And, for example, the way that the reed bed works doesn't work quite the same way here as it does in, reed beds in the UK, for example. The consultants were a multidisciplinary team. They did have some ecologists, but the project manager on the consultant side was an engineer, and effectively the project leader on the government side was a landscape architect. So the ecologists were very much in an advisory role. This whole complex was actually designed under Architectural Services Department, not Territory Development Department, and they went out and did speak to WWT, the World Wildlife Trust, and had various specialists educational specialists to help design the exhibits and things, as well as to make some fairly significant changes to part of the wetland habitats to make them more educational appropriate.
We also asked ecologists from Hong Kong U Department of Ecology and Biodiversity to comment on the plant species list, and there were informal discussions with WWF and Hong Kong Birdwatching Society.
So there were ecologists popping in and out throughout the design process, but they were only ever really in an advisory role. They weren't in a particularly powerful position to influence what happened.
And this project was before EIA comes into
That's right, yes. This project was designed in the mid-1990s, so there was no requirement to do an EIA to the Ordinance's standards because the standards didn't exist at the time. So an EIA was done on the area, both of the wetland here, but also the northern part of Tin Shui Wai over to our south here. but it was fairly rudimentary. It wasn't nearly as rigorous as it would be had it had to been done today. The EIA Ordinance came into force in 1998, and it has very detailed instructions on how to write an environmental impact assessment, whether it's landscape architecture, or whether it's noise, or whether it's ecology. We didn't have an awful lot of data about what was here before the area was infilled, when the original fish ponds.
Without an ecological baseline survey, there is no practical way to assess ecological improvements once the project has been completed.
So we didn't really have any detailed objectives. Our objective was just to create a variety of different wetland types. The site allowed us the opportunity to have both brackish and fresh water, which is obviously a real plus. Well, wouldn't it be nice to have some painted snipe habitat? Wouldn't it be nice to have some flooded woodland habitat? Wouldn't it be nice to have a mudflat so that we can show people mudflat species without them having to go out all the way to Maipo on a boardwalk? So that's you know, it was very much, well, this is a nice idea, let's do that sort of approach, rather than really science-based, which any habitat creation now is science-based. We did plant some swamp cypress. The remains of them are over here. But that was very much a landscape architect's idea. You know, you have some interesting trees. From an ecologist's point of view, a line of 5 or 6 trees is not really particularly useful in terms of habitat or biodiversity terms. So we just went ahead and created different types of wetland without really thinking, was this actually going to mitigate for whatever had been lost?
When Architectural Services Department joined the board.
Once the visitor centre plan came into being, then they had targets for the number of visitors they wanted, and they wanted to create a big internationally renowned facility. It used to be called the Hong Kong International Wetland Park, but the idea was that it would be on the tourist trail as well. In actual fact, it's proved the most amazing educational resource for Hong Kong children. As we mentioned before, just about every single Hong Kong child has been through here. So in that sense, the objective was very definitely achieved. But that was the objective of the educational aspects that were tied up with the visitor centre, which came after the design and initial construction of the actual wetlands themselves.